Gentlemen, I've brought you here to discuss the Eastwood problem.
It may be necessary to penetrate the Vinny Eastwood show.
The Vinny Eastwood show.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Well, I've been working on a new Vinny scene. I think that might be the kind of penetration we need. The Vinny Eastwood show. Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Live on Ground Zero Radio.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites. My fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood show is bad news. It's like the news, but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, one and all, to yet another exciting episode of the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting live on Ground Zero Radio, as well as the Twitch, the Facebook, and the Eugenics. You can subscribe at Vinny Eastwood NZ or NZ if you happen to not be able to spell Z correctly. Now, we have a wonderful lady here today, the one who's responsible for Vinny Eastwood's first ever live, well, it wasn't live, but the first ever broadcasted television show all the way back, what was that, like 2012 or 2013 or something like
2014.
that? 2014, yes. So it's the 10-year anniversary of the inaugural TV show of Vinny Eastwood, which we called Paradigm. At the time, she did an episode with the late Penny Bright, who unfortunately is not with us anymore, despite the fact that there are still many wars for her worship to fight. Nevertheless, Christianne has gone on to work with David Icke and help to set up Ickonic, which has been going strong ever since it was set up. Such is her skill and dedication to the task, no doubt. Christianne Van Wijk, welcome to the Vinny Eastwood Show. Lovely to have you back.
What a lovely intro, Vinny. And you know, it's interesting when you said in your intro, or in the actual pre-recorded intro, ladies and gentlemen and hermaphrodites. It's such a weird synchronicity, because I was literally thinking today, because what's it called? Dutch politician said there's only two genders, and then I went, yeah, but what does a hermaphrodite fall under then?
I guess they fall under both.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Random intro for my part, but it just stood out.
As they do. So would you give those who are unfamiliar with your work in documentary filmmaking and filmmaking itself and radio and the setup of Ickonic and all of that thing, would you be able to give us a wee bit of a background to your lovely self, darling?
I guess so. Yeah, I wanted to become a filmmaker long time ago, and long time ago, many years ago. And I thought, oh, I'm probably not good enough, but I really feel the need to use, you know, the medium of filmmaking to, you know, help with awakening the people of the world, and myself included as part of it, as part of the journey. And started filmmaking, you know, doing films about awakening, you know, starting around 2008 with various productions. And it was a hard knock life, because nobody was interested at the time in this kind of stuff. It was all woo-woo, and there wasn't really, you know, as you know, you remember yourself, because you started a long time ago as well. So it was pretty hard for many years, self-funding things and not really meeting many of your tribe. And then met Jamie Icke at one point in early 2020, just before the whole COVID thing kicked off. And he had just started Ickonic Media with, well, basically it was his initiative, but people like Richard Willard were already part of it from the beginning. And they came to New Zealand to film Dr. Robin Kelly and myself. And after we finished filming, we were like, okay, we seem to be working together very well. Let's continue together. So just before the whole COVID thing kicked off, I left New Zealand. And I remember saying to my actual psychic friend, Kendall, who you know, on the way to the airport, I said, I have a funny feeling that I'm not going to be able to come back anytime soon. I just have a feeling that something's, that this is I'm going to be away for a long time. And as I left to LA, I couldn't actually make my flight to Europe because they stopped flying because they declared the big sort of emergency. So I ended up having one of the last flights back to London, that were available. I remember being on the phone for about 5 hours with American Airlines trying to organize a flight. And so that was it. So I ended up in the UK and ended up making films with Ickonic. And for the first time, after having suffered, from having no money and no feeling of being with your tribe, which I know you recognize, Vinny, because you've had to really, I've followed your journey over the years, and it's been pretty hard for yourself as well. But it's been amazing to just be with people that are on the same mission, and it's very clever what Jamie's done, to do a membership platform. Of course, it helps to, the fact that there's lots of material of David on there to attract members. But over the years, we've become a truly independent platform, truly independent and true alternative media that's not, influenced by the powers that be, so to say.
Well, it's a tough job. Nobody can really deny that, and it's. Somebody told me the other day, oh, Vinny, you're like a legend in the New Zealand alternative media, and I was like, yeah, well, since being deplatformed, I'm no longer a legend. I've become somewhat of a myth, and I like having an air of mysteriousness. But
yeah, you were really one of the first ones.
I was the first one. It was just kind of like, if you look back in the day, like 2008 through maybe till 2017, when Jacinda Ardern was elected, there wasn't any alternative media platforms who were doing what I'm doing, having a website, doing video interviews, radio interviews, and things of that nature. So for nearly 10 years, I was carrying the flag for New Zealand alternative media. Largely by myself, and I had help, of course. There were lots of activists in New Zealand who would come on my show and help me to tell their stories, and many people who volunteered to help set up things, and like got the green screen working, told me what lights to get, and helped me with open broadcast software and all of that sort of thing. And now I've got my wonderful mods, and you recognize something that somebody. If you have the idea, it's your responsible to get that idea off the ground. But if you want to keep it flying, you are going to need help. Right? People won't get on board unless it's already in the air to a large degree. And people won't want to support you unless you've proven yourself that, yes, this person is doing the job, yes, this person is getting the job done, but now I can help him a little bit, right? It's that sort of thing of giving courage to others. That's what the word encourage means. And did you have an inciting incident, right? In the hero's quest, there's always, like in Star Wars, for instance, Obi-Wan says to Luke Skywalker that he has to join the rebellion, and Luke goes no, and then he comes home and his uncle and aunt have been blown up and turned into skeletons, and then he decides to join the rebellion after suffering such loss and trauma in the face of the denial of his destiny. And I found that this happens very, very similarly in real life to people, but we all have our different inciting incidents that makes us sacrifice what we previously thought was going to be our life's journey. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then you realize the truth won't allow you to live with yourself unless you help it come into the light. I was wondering what your story was in that regard.
Yeah, it's such a good thing what you just said, because there is a driving force that just remains with you in your life, and you cannot deviate from that and just follow the normal conventional journey. Because every time I tried to live a more conventional journey of normal marriage and normal salary and everything's always taken me away from that and back on this track. And yes, you do hear, you're right, sometimes of, events that happen that really kick it off. But in my case, and probably that fits with my Chinese astrology, I'm an ox. So things are more about not huge events, but more like plodding along kind of thing. And so for me, it has been lots of little things that have happened. But there's always been this really strong feeling, ever since I was small, of I have no time to waste. I've got to get onto it. And it's such a strong feeling that every time I try to just fit in any way, it would always fail. For years, I thought I was a terrible loser, because whenever I undertook something, an initiative to create something, it would never work. And the only thing that would only work was like anything to do around awakening. That's the only path that seemed to open up. And it didn't open up in regards to financial rewards, because it wasn't like that at all. But it was just, it's the only thing that would spur me on to get on with it. But unfortunately, it wasn't a big, event on the earth, as in boom, somebody was shot in front of me or something like that. But it was lots of little things in my case. And I do feel, and that might be a bit far out for some maybe, that for many years there were a lot of, I would say, like psychic attacks happening while I was doing this work. And, really quite extreme things like that. Like, for instance, when I was in New Zealand, I had very, very little, because before I was a resident, I wasn't allowed to work everywhere, and I was doing this work already. And I only had very basic things, like a basic laptop. That was my life, that laptop, because I edited everything on there. And, one day my whole van, I was living in a van as well. Everything was robbed. Everything was stolen that I had, including my phone. Everything was gone. Everything was gone. And then a week later, I was driving on the road in my van, and I was going over a one-way bridge, and it was my right of way. And I'm on this bridge, and suddenly this car from the other side comes charging at me, and I had a head-on collision with it. And I used to be a snowboarder, like a snowboard teacher as well, so I was used to, I knew how to fall and roll up into a ball. Had a few concussions back in my 20s, learned how to fall properly. So when I saw it come to me, I rolled up into a ball, and then the whole bottom part of the van was gone. And interestingly enough, the van was like a mess, but I was still strapped in. And the guy who drove the car got out, and he said, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, "Have you got a knife? You need to cut me loose," because it was all mangled up my seatbelt. Anyway, I climbed out of the van through the window, and he kept saying, "Why? How come your legs aren't damaged? Like how come your legs are still fine?" It's because I'd rolled up to a ball. But what he said was absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. He said to me, I drive this road every single day. I know that bridge by heart. And he said that he had a voice in him that said, keep driving, keep driving, keep driving. So that's pretty far out. I mean, if I say I haven't had any big events, that's quite far out. So I lost everything, and then the van was written off as well. And it's moments like that where you really feel like, okay, why am I doing this? What keeps me going? And sometimes we do need some serious encouragement, at least knowing that it makes a difference, because it's pretty hard. I don't know if you've got that too, moments where you go like, has it meant anything to anyone what I've done? And then sometimes you get an email from somebody saying, oh, your production changed my life or something like that. And you go, okay, it is doing something, but it's not the easiest journey. And I know that from you as well. I mean, censorship in your case already happened. You were the first ones to be totally censored. I remember your entire YouTube channel with all your work being removed after you criticized John Key.
Yeah, and I never thought that I would get that channel back at that time. And so I was just like, okay, well, this is my life now, and I'm a guy with heaps of content and no place to put it and no audience. And then of all days, Guy Fawkes Day, my channel just popped back up all of a sudden. And so I was celebrating. I was out on the deck having a drink while all the fireworks were going off around me on Guy Fawkes Day, having my channel brought back. And it was just like, whoa, that's got to mean something. And this whole journey, I think for me, it started as a sense of rude awakening when I got arrested. Because when I got arrested when I was a kid, really, I was 19, I trusted police, and confessed everything to them and was very honest with them. And then they made up evidence, even though they had my full confession, and then used it against me. And so that was a bit of a rude awakening. That was where I got complex post-traumatic stress from. And then after my second rude awakening, which was going into employment, being fired because I wrote a 7-page essay about what was wrong with the company and how to improve it in multiple different departments. And my boss didn't like that and didn't pay attention to my recommendations and instead fired me. And ever since then, it's been very, very difficult to have the idea of working for the state, which I don't trust because they traumatize me, or working for private corporations, which I don't trust because they traumatize me. And both are betrayal. So what do you do when you can't work privately or publicly? You must work for the truth.
Yes.
It's not a choice, it's a lack of options.
Yeah, lack of options, but also, I mean, I don't know how that is for you. Like that there's something else there, because the whole thing is just, the whole foundation is based on deception, and so it's like your moral obligation to do something, and I don't know if you've got the same, but if you don't do it, it's almost like you can't live with yourself.
Yeah, I talked to a couple of artists a little while ago about this phenomenon. If you're a creator and you have ideas in your head, there's an interesting dynamic. If you're not creating stuff and publishing it and finishing it and getting it out there, working on it and what have you, instead of doing that, your only other option is to become a little bit depressed. And if you are not working for a significant period of time on your creative projects, you will start to consume other people's creative content, and instead of enjoying it and being inspired by it, you will become resentful of it, and you will see in the chat rooms of almost anybody's channel, regardless of whether they're talking about movies or video games or the truth or makeup or whatever, there's all these comments in the comment section from people who embody that resentment. This person's doing something that I can do, but I'm not doing it because I can't be bothered, and so I feel resentful of them, and so I'm going to try and criticize them and bring them down. Instead of getting my ass into gear and actually working on something and then putting it up there and having the bravery to have other people criticize it and tell them that they can go F themselves if they don't like it. I like it. I did it. Now people are enjoying it. You resent it because you resent yourself. Bye-bye! You are blocked, and I don't have to deal with your negativity anymore, you whinging, whining little maggoty biatch.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely. And you've just kept going. You've just kept going after everything, you know. You've never left. You've always been steady in the whole thing, and you've just kept going. And yeah, I mean, I see it happening to David Icke every single day. I mean, I don't even think he checks the comments anymore because he didn't do it anyway, but it's laden with that, you know, laden with people that are finding any opportunity to have a go.
Yeah. Well, I remember looking at an article from Psychology Today, and it identified that internet trolls are psychopaths, narcissists, and sadists. All right? Mm-hmm. People who don't care how you feel, people who want to hurt your feelings, and people who get off on your hurt feelings, right? And it identified this interesting Rubicon line, I think, but the difference between somebody who's giving you genuine criticism and somebody who's just trying to get a rise out of you because they've got a personality disorder that gives them a juice when they do it and you reply. Specifically, it's the and you reply part that they want. They want your attention. Negative attention, if you start abusing them or whatever, that's still giving them attention and they love it. Okay, and that's, I think, the main thing that people need to understand about broadcasting publicly and being open to criticism and comments is that these personality disorders are quite prevalent in the comment sections, and giving them attention, feeding the trolls, as it were, is not going to do you any good. It's only going to do them good.
That's exactly right. And I think, you know, when you're talking about people that's, you know, are psychopaths or narcissists or anything, the way I see it is that a part of them has like an archontic energy interfering with them. And then I always have to think of what David writes and speaks about, the word louche, which he got from the Robert Monroe. You know, Robert Monroe spoke about that first, you know, that they like to absorb louche energy, the suffering of humans kind of thing. And so that works through people all the time. And yes, when you do reply and engage, that louche is released. So, I mean, I guess there's a silver lining to the whole thing is that you really learn how to be okay with the fact that you're being criticized. And because I remember when I started off, and you know, when I did Mind the Matrix, the film in 2014, that you did a fantastic interview in, absolutely fantastic. You know, some of the comments on that film were just, oh man, like, she's a man. What is that all about, hey? She's actually a man. Okay. But I remember at the time being quite affected by it and thinking, oh, they don't like me, da-da-da. But the great thing is it does set you free after a while because it does become water of a duck's back fabulously. So thank God.
I haven't found that feeling goes away. Like I've been quite sensitive my entire life. You know, I was thinking this morning about my friends, past friends in the past, and you know, I don't have any friends from before being a truther that are still my friends today, right? Wow. You go in different directions, and you find all new people to be your friends, people who get you and understand you and things like that, people who aren't trapped in that matrixy type mindset. And it's painful, right? It's like being uprooted. The whole concept of moving house. Nobody likes to move house because there's so much stuff and it's so much work. And even when you do get to your new house, there's so much work and so much stuff to unpack. And losing your friends because you've dedicated your life to truth is one of the natural consequences. And the people who are used to be close to you, used to be your friends and things of that nature, even your family, become at best loose acquaintances.
I've heard that a lot. And of course, many people can now empathize with that, having gone through the whole COVID time, where many families have been split up as a result of it. You know, you've got one black sheep that gets it and then gets ostracized by the whole family. So you hear that all the time nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Why is it that people are attempting, I think, largely to make themselves suffer as a result of their choices? Now, let me define what I mean by that. If you are going from a point A, which is you are working professionally and you're making clear amounts of money and you're very popular and you get invited to parties and things of that nature and you've got a nice place to live and a good car and a great credit card rating and things of that nature, to you don't have a job, you don't have a good car, you don't have a great place to live, you don't get invited to parties, people will shun you and ostracize you, you begin to wonder what the point is in fighting for the truth. And I had this thing that I do on my show a number of times that sort of explains to the two approaches in life and the rewards and the unintended consequences of the choices. So somebody comes up to you and says, Vinny, I want you to sell lies. And you're like, lies? What do I get if I sell lies? And he goes, mate, you're going to be rich. You're going to have heaps of friends that are all famous. All those people you see on the TV and hear on the radio, they're going to be your mates, Vinny. You're going to go to their parties. You're going to do drugs with them. You're going to have a right hot time. You're going to have a mean house, a hot missus, and you'll be able to shag other chicks on the side. You'll be able to do any drugs you want, whenever you want. You're going to be great, mate. Really? That's what I get if I sell lies? Yeah, mate. Huh. What about you, mate? What do you reckon I should sell? I reckon you should sell the truth, Vinny. The truth? What do I get if I sell that? Well, you're going to lose most of your friends. And you're probably going to lose your job too. And you're sort of going to become a social outcast, a pariah, if you will. You're not really selling me on this, mate. Yeah, it's the truth, mate. I can't really dress it up. Okay. Well, what about the unintended consequences of telling lies? Oh, you know all that money you've got? Yeah. You know all those friends you got? Yeah. You know all those things that you have, the money, the wife, and all of that kind of business? Yeah. You could say the truth once, or just do the wrong thing that they don't want, and all of that will just disappear. You get sick, nobody's going to be there for you because they don't really care about you, because there's nothing genuine in your relationships or your career that actually stands by itself and holds any stability. That's the unintended consequence of telling lies? Yeah, mate. Well, what are the unintended consequences of telling the truth then? Oh, you know how you lose your friends, right? Yeah. You gain new ones. And they're genuine. And they're cool. And anything bad that happens to you, they'll care. And they'll be there for you. And they won't go away. Because they're like gold. They don't lose their shine. What about money? Oh, you'll have everything you need. Exactly when you need it. right in the time that you need it.
That's the one.
And in exactly the quantity that you require.
Yeah.
At all times, throughout every day, you are going to have precisely what you need to continue telling the truth. And it won't go away as long as you're committed. So that's the unintended consequence of telling the truth, eh? Yeah. Interesting.
What shall we do?
Why do people make their lives harder by serving lies and dishonesty? Because it tells them that life is going to be easier if you do it, but ultimately it's not. It's a fabrication. It's like a snake eating its own tail. And you were talking about people who criticize you and what have you. Mark Passio does this thing. He gives anybody who gives him any criticism on his show, watch out. Because he will Google your name and find that you've done absolutely nothing worthy of recognition that will turn up in a search result. You're criticizing me, huh? Have a look what happens when you Google my name. And look at the reams of things that come up and all the accolades and all the work that I've done. You are nothing, boy. You are nothing, little girl. I'm working for the truth and I'm making stuff and I'm actually doing it just because it's the right thing to do. That's why my opinion matters. That's why yours doesn't.
Yep, and it's so flippin' interesting what you say about you'll have what you need, and that has been throughout my entire life. I look at people now, I'm 51 now, and I look at people around me and they've built up all these things, I've accumulated possessions and they own their own homes and everything. And I still have nothing. And I'm earning a salary with Ickonic, which is like amazing since the last 5 years. Wow, fantastic, super happy. But I still haven't accumulated anything or any possession or whatever. But I've always had this thing that whatever I need has always been there. And during my ayahuasca that I did in 2010, I was basically reminded that when I came in this realm, that was sort of like an agreement that I would never be without what I need, and I wouldn't suffer serious physical suffering. Those were sort of two things. And I've always known when things were really hard, like when I lost everything, I knew I'll have what I need. And I did. I've never been hungry or never been without a bed to sleep in or, never been cold. So I do feel a strong gratitude for the fact that there is that sort of invisible support in a way.
Yeah, that kind of background of intent, right? If somebody's got the intent to do something because they want to make money. Like I remember I had a co-host and I think we were maybe 6 months into the opening of the Vinny Eastwood show and he quit because we weren't making any money at it. And I thought about it like he wanted to make money like Alex Jones was making money selling advertising and doing all that thing, but wasn't willing to actually put in the work in order to make that happen. He'd just show up at showtime or maybe generally. And he had his own website that he was, quote unquote, working on that never got finished and never actually went live. And
part-time truthers.
Sorry, say again?
Part-time truthers, because it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle.
Can you explain that a little bit for people?
Yeah, it's not something you switch on and off. It's not like, ooh, I'm going to be a truther now for an hour. No, what you're saying in that hour has been brewing and percolating well before you go live with something. It's your whole life is about pondering on the whole thing, the whole thing of awakening and what's stopping the awakening. And when you look into what's stopping the awakening, it needs prolific research to really get to the roots of that. So it becomes a lifestyle. It's not something that you can just switch on for the show. It won't work like that.
Yeah, I think doing the show for me is a little bit of a weird one, because I have this, well, you might call it confidence or mental illness, perhaps, that I think that I'm very good at what I do, and sometimes I just need to remind myself of that. And I did a mushroom trip some time ago, and it helped me to realize, like, and I think this goes for everybody, look at what you've been through. Look at what has been done to you. Look at what people have done to you. All the bad things that you've experienced. And you did not stop doing the right thing. You didn't lose your sense of humor. You didn't lose your moral compass. That is no small achievement, guys. And sometimes you just need to remind yourself who you really are, what you've been through, what you've done, what you've accomplished, what you've done for people. Because sometimes we all have that moment of self-doubt. For some people, it's a lot longer than a moment. And it will fester inside your heart. And sometimes you just need to give yourself a little bit of credit.
Yeah. And it's funny when you do like a little mushroom thing, because some people think, oh, druggy thing, but it's a medicinal journey, like what I did with ayahuasca in 2010. But mushrooms can have that effect as well. Moments like that, when you do it for sort of like a sacred journey, you know, it can really be a beautiful reminder of stuff like that. And you do need it. You do need it because, like you said before, you don't get the usual rewards that others get. So it's very nice to get something, you know, in the form of, you know, having a little connection again with the bigger picture, the bigger source, and to see that indeed, you know, you haven't succumbed to the temptations of this satanic realm. You know, in a way, we all have to some degree, you know, when we eat food, you know, anything we do on this earth has a form of damage to something else, you know. And when I talk to David about that, he always says, yeah, but that's impossible to help, because when you incarnate here, you go into like a, you know, how does he call it? A killing field, you know, it's a killing field. So coming here already, you know, you cannot avoid being in a way part of that. You know, like I said, even when you eat, a plant has died, or you know, an animal has died or whatever. You are constantly in a way also part of this system. So you've got to do as much as possible to rise above it without actually dying from hunger.
It seems very similar to how what was it? James Cameron's Avatar looks at it as all energy is only borrowed, and someday you have to give it back. Which reminds me of something Schwarzenegger said actually after he became highly successful. He says that one of the most important things once you've become successful is to give back. And I've given out PA speakers and megaphones and cell phone gimbals and things like that to new people starting up in the truth movement who are doing some good work, and just give them a bit of equipment so that they can do their job just that little bit better, that little bit more enhanced. And I think that obligation, the whole concept of mentorship, is actually very important. And I see there's my consciousness in the New Zealand truth media. It was very, very different, I feel, to all the other alternative media that showed up since 2017, Johnny Come Latelys. The difference primarily being is that I didn't just start up by myself and just start doing it. I immediately, before I started doing anything, sought mentorship from people who were already doing something. Not the things that I wanted to do, but something. Because I believed that they had something to teach me about this level of consciousness that propels you forward and obligates you to do the right thing. What have these people gone through? What's been done to them? How did they go about it? How did they start? Etc., etc. And that's what the show, in terms of its interviews, have largely encompassed. They are the short-form biographies of many of the people who are very successful in the truth movement, because this show, instead of going to university and listening to lectures and things of that nature about subjects that I'm not particularly interested in, I was always interested in people. Who they are is what has happened to them and what they've done with that. So this great little YouTube video where a guy likened this cooking show, which he liked, which was particularly interesting. Instead of being given the same sets of ingredients and things of that nature and making a meal and competing who's got the best meal out of all the same ingredients, they gave people all different ingredients, and they would be weird ingredients as well, like a pig's trotter or something. Okay, what are you going to make out of this? and it's like, that's what life is, man. What do you do with these different, weird little ingredients that have been given to you?
Great analogy. Great analogy. And yes, it is that, what's been given to you, and then indeed what you make of it. And I think courage is a great, thing to have in all of this, because a lot of the time, when you dare to do it, there's a great inner reward for that, I find.
What do you feel is the most encouraging thing that's actually happened to you along this journey that's helped to propel you forward when at times you might have questioned whether or not you can keep doing this?
Maybe I'm being too spiritual when I answer the questions, but I do feel there is something about when you honor, you say truth, or when you honor, I guess it's also authenticity. Are you all right?
I'm fine.
But I guess, when you stay true to something inside, your inner compass, and you stay true to that, the reward of that is that there is a feeling of being at home in yourself. And there's a richness to that is almost impossible to explain. And I've seen many people that have gone for the external rewards, like partly selling the soul kind of thing. And you see them aging, and you see them, like being just anxious and unwell and ooh. And so I guess, in the outside world, I haven't got many examples to give, but definitely on the inside, I feel like quite connected as a result of it. And that to me is everything.
I was talking to David one time on this show, and we were talking about planning, right? And what a waste of time it can be. Not all planning, but some planning, because if you are on the path unfolds before you, and you need not a plan. And it reminds me of something Stuart Swerdlow from expansions.com told me. He said that in a survival situation, the most important survival tool is not water, food, guns, or toilet paper. The most important survival tool, which most people forget, is their mind. If you can think your way out of a situation, that is more likely going to be the decider of whether or not you live or die. And the same is true for having a truth broadcasting career. If your mind is with you and you're able to think your way out of things and you don't have to have everything lined up, the path will simply unfold before you. Oh, I want to go over here now. Why are we going over here? I don't know. Hey, bro, I haven't met you in yet. How you going? You know, like, this was the reason why I walked over here all of a sudden for some reason. I had this little instinct.
The synchronicity thing. Yeah, that's actually a really good point what you're saying, because I guess that's what I'm trying to say is when you have that, you feel that connection. There is a thing indeed like synchronicity where certain situations happening around you of meeting the right person at the right time or et cetera, those kind of things are very much, I think, the thing that make you realize you are on the right track.
Yeah, this idea that you don't have a plan and you don't need one, and every time you're worried about something, like I remember in 2012, I've told this story a number of times. I got up and it was bill day, right? I had to pay my power bill, my internet bill, and my rent, and I calculated it up. And it was like, man, that's $500. I don't have $500. So I go to my computer, sit down, I open my PayPal, and what's in there? 500 euros from a guy named Gert in Germany. It's like, okay.
And you never forgot. Isn't that beautiful? You remember his name. Because it's like core memory.
Right, and so these are the things that really teach me. And every now and again, I'll worry, like I'm not sure if I'm going to have the rent this week. I'm not sure if I'll have enough money for food. I'm not sure if I'll have enough money for gas or whatever. And then I remind myself, no, it'll come.
Yeah, it's been proven time and time and time again. Yeah.
Right, they call it having faith.
Yeah, well, this is what, when you said about Stuart Swerdlow, who I think is great and does great work, you know, when you said about mind, I thought, yeah, I guess I would take it a step further. It would almost be like a spirit knowing, you know, from the spirit. And the mind kind of follows suit to that.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I guess, well, yeah, the mind, well, I don't know how you see the mind, but I see the mind always more as a tool. But that's, you know, the connection of spirit with the source of who we truly are, the timelessness of pure consciousness. That is the guiding part, and the mind picks up on that and does something with it. So it's not the mind coming up with it; it's the mind receiving the guidance from your consciousness, from your true self.
So let's say everybody has potentially some kind of inspiration, right? So, for instance, right now you might be thinking about song lyrics. Write them down. You might be thinking about, you need to clean up your room or your kitchen. Write it down and make sure that you do it, right? Because regardless of what thought you have, regardless of what inspiration you have, thoughts and inspiration mean nothing without action to back it up. Okay? It's something has been bugging me about it quite considerably, is that if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm in bed trying to get to sleep, but I can't get to sleep because there's a song lyric in my head or a guest that I want to interview or something, I get up out of bed and record that because I know in the morning I'm going to forget it, right? And if I forget it and don't put it into action, there's going to be a missed opportunity, a missed calculation, or something of that nature, right? You got to be on the ball potentially 24 hours a day. And things will just come at you from any million bunches of directions, and you have to sit there, get that inspiration, and then process it and actuate it, right? Because it's like I say on the show, there's you're a fifth dimensional consciousness being. First dimension's a dot, second dimension's a line, third dimension's a box, fourth dimension's that box moving through time, and the fifth dimension is the box, but it's beyond time and it's beyond space. And that's where all your thoughts are when other people are talking. All those thoughts that you have that you don't actually manifest into the material universe. And that is your job as a creative being, to take that which exists outside of time and space in the fifth dimension and spend your fourth dimensional time willing those ideas and inspirations into the three-dimensional universe. Only there can others see it, hear it, smell it, taste it.
It's funny, you just said,
touch it, and be inspired by it.
Sorry. What you just said is exactly what I kind of meant, is that the mind receives it. So it's outside of time, and then the mind receives it, and then the person puts it into action.
So that is very close to the end of the show now that we've got here. Man, that's gone very quickly, hasn't it?
That's gone quickly, yes.
So let's talk about Ickonic and do a little bit of self-promo as that. Where can people find it? What can they find on there? How can people support it?
Yeah, so I would say Ickonic is... I don't know if you remember Gaia, quite focused on spiritual. I would say it's also an alternative media platform, but we truly have a plethora of things. So we have incredible documentaries, lots of current affairs shows, interesting interview series, and there's so much on there now. I mean, actually, I'm in France at the moment with friends. And they were scrolling through it tonight, and they were just like, there's so much on there. There's so much. You couldn't watch it if you tried, there's just so much. And it's still, fairly hidden. I think we haven't reached our full potential. It's not even close yet, We're still opening up. But the potential is endless with it. So yeah, you can find it on ickonic.com. It's ICK. It comes from the name Ike, ickonic.com, and it's very affordable. I don't actually know what the latest price is. I think you pay per year, and it's not a lot of money at all. Yeah, if I wasn't working for Ickonic, I'd definitely be a member and watching it all the time.
Okay.
And David Stuff is all on there, his weekly Dot Connector show. He's still going strong. He'll be 73 this year, and he's still, at it all the time. It's amazing. He never stops.
Yeah, they say that retirement is what kills people. It's
not retiring is what will kill him eventually.
Yeah. Well, and people always ask the question, why hasn't he been assassinated then? He must be an insider. He must be a false.
I was talking about that tonight.
And this guy asked me this one time, and I was like, bro, okay, you're saying he's got no opposition and he's still allowed there. Do you know what happened to him when he first came out? He was like a national joke. He couldn't walk down the street without people pointing and laughing at him, okay? He went through like copious quantities of things. He's been disallowed to go to Europe, and various things have happened to him to oppose him and what have you. That's one thing that's happening, and they're like, oh, but he must be rich and stuff like that. No, he's not. He lives in a little place that has a kitchen that can barely be called a galley, just so that he can take care of himself and things like that, okay? I remember Jonathan Eisen from Uncensored magazine, and one day I had a realization, and I gave him a call. I said, hey, John, I think I've copied your lifestyle. And he goes, what do you mean? And I go, well, you know how you don't really go out? You mostly just sit at home and do your work. And when you do go out, there's only a small amount of people that you really associate with and talk to. And he goes, yeah, that's because most people are just not worth your time. Right? And this is how it works, guys. All right.
Yeah.
I call it panhandling. Right. If you're getting gold from a river, you have to pick up and scoop up all this dirt and rock and crap. And then you have to swirl the water around and around until the things that you don't want fall off of your plate and back into the river. And at the bottom of the pan, after all that swirling and all that working, you're left with those little nuggets of gold. Yeah. And that's what you are, Christiane, a wonderful little nugget.
Oh, I love that. Can I add something to what you just said about David? You know, when people say, why hasn't he been taken out? I've heard a story of somebody close to David. I'm not going to give too many details, but who spoke to an ex-MI5 or MI6 agent who had confessed that there were about 5 attempts on David's life over the years, and that apparently no one can succeed and they can't get close to him. And when I spoke to David about it, he said he thinks that there's a protection, an energetic protection. And that's probably, you know, when I was speaking about, you know, when I came in, I was promised I would not be hungry and I would always have what I needed. Well, I guess this is something that he came in with. You know, he'll always be protected. And, you know, to an extent, you know, because he's not protected from being banned from the entirety of Europe and Australia and, you know, being ridiculed and stuff like that. But when it comes to actually losing your life, there is a protection energy there, I believe.
That's the one element of it. And I also explained to this guy about credibility. All right. If you are the head of DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Division of the National Security Agency, and you turn whistleblower, the chances are that they will make a lot of effort to take you out because you're very credible, right? And if they can't take you out, they will do everything within their power to damage your reputation, okay?
Yes.
And that's the thing. Anytime you mention David Icke, there is a good chance that somebody will say, oh, you're going to be talking about reptilians next. All right. So that's the thing. You don't need to take out David Icke if you've damaged his credibility to the point and brainwashed the population into putting him in a little box so that you don't listen to him.
Can I add one thing to that? Because you're spot on with that. So I'm making a film at the moment. It's called Persona Non Grata, the demonization of David Icke. And it's all about his ban from Europe. And we're going really deep into the whole ridiculing thing. But he's also going to explain into detail what he means with the whole reptilian thing and why people call him anti-Semitic. And so we're really going into the whole thing. So that film is going to be premiering on the 26th of March in the Netherlands and a couple of days later in London. And then it's going to come on the Ickonic platform, Persona Non Grata. I really highly recommend people to watch it who've been brainwashed into thinking that he's just talking about reptilians.
That's the thing about reputation. It's what people say about you. Character is who you really are. And David's a hell of a character.
You could say that, all right.
Yeah. I remember what time, one of the crowning achievements of my career was not only did I get David Icke and Mark Passio on a show together, but I made David laugh. A good one, you know. I'd done a number of interviews with him, and I was always trying to get him to laugh and failing, and then I just nailed it, you know. And it was with this one. This one time, I was on a show with some Americans, and they said, "So Vinny, give it to us straight. Is the Earth flat or is it round?" And I went, "Well, I think it's a holographic fractal that's being projected by collective consciousness experiencing itself subjectively." And they were like, "Whoa." So at the end of the day, people might have simplistic understandings of things. But with that being said, Christianne Van Wijk from Ickonic and from Earth. Rather, she's a being that coasts on the waves of inspiration and fantabulousness. I only just learned the word fantabulous, and I think it is absolutely fantabulous in and of itself. You know, it's kind of like an onomatopoeia, something that sounds like what it is, like scumbaggery or swash or pop. Anyway, thank you very much for giving us your time. And can people follow you on Instagram and stuff like that?
Yes, just under my name, Christianne Van Wijk. Yeah.
All right. Name is on screen, guys. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Remember to go to thevinnieeastwoodshow.com. It's Vinny with a Y because it's the most important question. And Eastwood, like, go ahead, make my news. And this is a listener-supported broadcast, ladies and gentlemen, so you can donate through PayPal, KiwiBank, and Patreon. If you are a Patreon, you're going to be able to get exclusive little rewards as well. And if you have already donated, but you haven't done it yet, on the homepage it says, already donated? Click here for your special rewards, and you'll actually get to be able to talk to me personally. Okay? This is the thing. Giving my time to the people who give me their support, I think is an obligation, and more often than not, it's a real pleasure. Okay? All of you guys that come on this show, and all of you who donate and support the show and things of that nature, guys, just love you so much because you're all intelligent, you've got a sense of humor, you've got skills, and you've got a story to tell. So, guys, thank you very much for your time, and we will see you next time on the Vinny Eastwood Show.com.
Gentlemen, I've brought you here to discuss the Eastwood problem. It may be necessary to penetrate the Vinny Eastwood Show. The Vinny Eastwood Show. Yeah, that's what I said.
Well, I've been working on a new Vinny scene. I think that might be the kind of penetration we need.
The Vinny Eastwood Show. Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Live on Ground Zero Radio. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites. My fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood Show is bad news. It's like the news, but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed?